Another class we offer is for estimators. It's the estimating class. Again, one day, 8:30 till about 3 in the afternoon. Really no limit to how many estimators we put in that class. We really do want to limit it to estimators, newer estimators. We assume you know how to structure and write an estimate. This is not a class where you come and you learn how, take a body technician and teach them how to write an estimate. We're going to assume you know how to physically structure an estimate. This is going to be on everything an estimator does, everything within his job description. In fact, his job description is one of the topics. What sort of things is he responsible for all the way through that vehicle being there on in the shop? So we're going to talk about some of the subjects within the estimators class. One of the topics will be selling a job. Okay, we got to get consumers to our door. Well, how do we sell that job? How do we know what that consumer is concerned with? What are consumers' concerns when they bring a vehicle to your shop? What's a female's concerns versus a male's concerns when they bring their vehicle to your shop? How do you know the word track to get them to leave you the vehicle or schedule the vehicle with you? Even more important, if that vehicle is a driving vehicle, are you actually ready to take it in? Can you put that vehicle into production today? Why would that vehicle sit on your lot for the next 3 days waiting on parts when that consumer can continue to drive it and you have the car come in once the parts come in, and maybe that car only sits there in the shop 2 days and is now done and gone? So we're going to talk about selling a job to a consumer, and your estimator is probably the #1 person to sell that job to the consumer. We're going to also talk about customer insurance relations through the estimator. Okay, negotiating with insurance companies, where to negotiate and how to negotiate, negotiating non-included items, things that may not always be paid for. Paint caps. Or thresholds. We'll talk a little bit about paint thresholds, whether or not you should actually create an invoice for the paint materials. We're going to talk about consumer relations. Once again, finding out what their concerns are. Dealing with customers as they come through the door, keeping that relationship after the vehicle leaves the shop. The average customer that has a vehicle repaired doesn't remember the name of the shop that's repaired their vehicle 6 months later. So do we do anything after the vehicle has been gone? Is there any kind of a customer contact? How are we contacting the customer? Are we doing it through phone calls? Are we doing it through emails? Are we doing it through texts? Really getting an idea of how the customer wants to be contacted through the repair process. I will always try to lean more towards email. You know, if you call, you never know what you're going to get on the other line. You get a customer that's just been yelled at by their boss or just got off the phone with their kids' school. They may not be in the best mood. If you have any kind of bad news, it's not going to go well. Whereas if it's through email, generally speaking, when people sit down to read their emails, they're a little more calm. They're ready to take in some information. So how are we contacting that customer through the repair process? We'll be discussing teardown and blueprint, where the estimator plays a role all the way through teardown and blueprint. He plays a very large role in it through its scheduling. Some shops have production managers, some shops don't. So if a shop is not running a production manager, that estimator might play a little bit of a larger role within the teardown and blueprint process. But nonetheless, the estimator is still going to be involved in that teardown and blueprint process. We'll be talking about writing a full estimate. How do we know that that estimate is complete? Again, keeping that supplement ratio down. We want that supplement ratio as low as we can possibly get. Parts orders. 1 parts order per vendor per RO is ideal. We have shops out there running 3, 4, 5, 6 parts orders over an 8-day period of time. Our parts orders should be created within 24 hours of that vehicle being in the shop, and that should be a full parts order, no matter what it is. LKQ, OEM, you name it, aftermarket, that parts order or parts orders per vendor should be created within the first 24 hours of that vehicle being in the shop. So what's the estimator's role in the whole parts process? Again, are you running a parts manager in the shop, or is the estimator taking on that role? We'll be discussing repair versus replace. How does an estimator know when to write a little more repair versus replace? When is the best time to replace? When is the best time to repair? Okay? Understanding work in process and how saturated your shop may be at the time is something that he or she should know in writing an estimate. Do I want to write a little more repair, a little more labor? Do I want to write a little more replace on this particular estimate based on how much work in process our shop has at the moment? We'll be discussing delivery dates, scheduling delivery days, as well as metal out time. Delivery date, an accurate delivery date based on the flag hours per day per RO produced, be it through the whole shop or maybe for a particular body team. Not sure if you're running teams through your shop, but if you are, tracking that particular team's flag hours per day per RO produced and coming up with a true delivery date as well as metal out time. When is that vehicle really supposed to transition from body to paint? The estimator will learn how to track those and schedule true delivery dates and metal out time. Understanding their technician's labor efficiency. How many flag hours per day can a particular technician produce? That is something the shop should know and the estimator should know. That way they can maintain that technician's vehicle in process. So you're maintaining flag hours per day per RO. Again, most insurance companies are looking for 4, sometimes 4.5, sometimes 5 flag hours per day per RO. Well, that's driven by work in process per that technician. So an estimator is going to need to understand how to track a technician's labor efficiency as well as work in process or vehicle threshold so he can schedule those vehicles to the right technicians at the right time. Those are some of the main topics within the estimator's class. There are some others from tracking that production through the job, maybe controlling the daily walkthrough meeting or a daily production meeting, again, depending on whether there's a production manager within that shop, all the way into closing out the ticket. And again, sometimes shops have people that close out the tickets, not the estimators. So depending on what that estimator is doing, and again, going back to even keeping in some form of contact at maybe 2-3 weeks after the vehicle leaves, a month, 2 months, whatever it is, some form of an email, contact, something mailed out to keep that marketing going after the vehicle leaves the shop.